The Clippers are still a huge contender for this NBA season. Although the Clippers had a very underwhelming season this past year, obviously going out in the second round, and many fans thought they would actually go on and win the championship. And in the second round they faced the Denver Nuggets and they initially took a commanding 3-1 lead, but subsequently lost 3 straight games and were out in the second round. And for me personally, this was the biggest upset in the entire playoffs. So for this video, obviously, this is going to be my predictions for the Los Angeles Clippers this season, following on from the Lakers in my last video. And if you enjoy my videos, it really does help out if you like, so could you please do that? And then without further ado, let's get right into the video. So from last season, the Clippers do still have their main players in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Both of them have received tremendous amounts of hate though from Clippers fans and all NBA fans for that matter. And obviously, because they're seen as the main reason why the Clippers lost to the Nuggets. And Paul George, for one, was very on and off this series, with him scoring over 30 points in 2 games, but then 10 points in another 2. But in one of the games where PG only scored 10 points, the Clippers actually won it by 11 points. And then in another game where he dropped 33 points, the Clippers lost by 13. So I don't think he was the main source of their problems, and it's hard to pinpoint a loss on just one player, rather the whole team. In their Game 2 loss, the team collectively shot 28% from 3, which is extremely poor for their standards. In their Game 5 loss, Kawhi and PG both had great games with 36 points and 26 points, and they both shot over 40% from 3. But the next highest scorer was Marcus Morris with only 12 points, so the rest of the team really failed to show up, and they only shot 37% from the field. But the Clippers will know as good as anyone what they need to know to improve, so I'll just leave that there. So now I just want to talk about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard specifically, as they are the 2 best players as previously mentioned. At the start of last season, they were both top 10 players in the league, but after a disappointing year, Paul George is certainly out of the top 10, and Kawhi has arguably dropped down to around the 8th best player. But I don't really agree with this, and it's a severe case of recency bias. One fairly bad season for a player does not completely tarnish their reputation. So how good do I think Paul George will be this season? I think he'll be back to his best and possibly even better. Last season anyway, he didn't even play that bad and averaged 21, 6 and 4 a night. It's just because everyone's expectations of him were so high that it was seen as a bad season. I think he could easily average over 25 a night this season and hopefully get back to being the great perimeter defender that we all know and love. And when you look at Kawhi Leonard stats wise, he never really took a dip in his production, as he averaged a career high in points and assists last season. His effective field goal percentage was a little low at 52%, but that's still quite good. What Kawhi Leonard should improve on most though is his relationships with his teammates, as he's always been known as an awkward kind of guy and who people struggle to get on with. And it's said that the Clippers team chemistry last season wasn't great either, as Kawhi isn't really a great leader. He's obviously very reserved and one of the best players in the world, but he's never really had a significant impact on the team around him. I don't feel like he has anyway. And with him being 29 now, it's unlikely he'll ever change, but he did lead the Raptors to a championship just like this, so maybe it does work. And now, as I was saying, I think the Clippers roster did actually get a little bit worse over the offseason, as they obviously lost Montrezl Harrell to the Lakers. But they did pick up Serge Ibaka to replace him, who's also a great defensive player. Other than that, their team is pretty much the same as last season, with Zubac, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams and Marcus Morris. I think Lou Will and Zubac will be as great as ever, and Zubac might be developing a more consistent mid-range shot too. Patrick Beverley will be the pest that he always is on defense and try to shut down the opposing team's best player, although he does play quite dirty obviously. Then Marcus Morris can hopefully get over his injury problems and get back to being the great role player that he is. So with all that being said, what is my floor and ceiling for the Clippers this season? Well, like I said, I think they're serious contenders, so their ceiling for me is the NBA Championship and the number 1 seed in the West. But then like I said with the Lakers, the floor is so much harder to discuss. With the Western Conference being so competitive this season, it's really hard to predict what their floor would be. And I could see them dropping down to around the 6th seed, which is obviously very low, but here are the teams I could see finishing above them. And I think it could be the Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets, Mavericks and Blazers. And when you put it like that, it doesn't seem too unreasonable to have them as low as the 6th seed, although I do think they'll finish around the 3rd or 4th. And then for the playoffs, I can't see them doing any worse than last season, so they need to get to the 2nd round at least. But my actual prediction for them in the playoffs, I think they'll get to the West Conference Finals, but unfortunately lose to the Lakers. But the Western Conference playoffs this season will be so fun to watch, as all seeds 1 through 8 will be so competitive. And so that is my prediction for the Clippers this season, and as always I hope you've really enjoyed watching, and if you want to subscribe you can see more from me. I don't yet know what my next team will be that I discuss, but it'll be out either the 26th or 27th. And then as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.